Dear Rentals Club members, thank you for joining us for this session. I'm with Jaume Barberena. Jaume is in Barcelona right now. And what's interesting here is that not only is he with his company BizFlats, a property manager who knows his market pretty well, but also he's bringing to the table now a different approach to what's going on. We'll be talking about topics such as why property managers and really all industry members in regions, countries should get together to do a bit more about owning distribution. We'll be talking about also how it's a moment where things could be redefined. The industry is at crossroads. So what property managers should do right now, because maybe it's going to be too late to do something else and not to get back in the past situation. Also, we'll be talking about the whole topic of why our property managers, why should they be the payer of last resort when it comes to cancellations or this kind of topic. So what's interesting, so Jaume, thank you for talking with us today. And we'll be covering this because what's find very interesting here is like you give us a framework to think through this for people listening to it, and that's valuable for anyone in the world. So thank you for being here, and how are you?
Well, thank you, Thibaut, for having me on your web show. First, I would just like to say a few words to for all our colleagues all around the world whose business is suffering right now because of the coronavirus crisis. Hang in there. It's we'll all get through this, and vacation rentals will always be a significant part of the travel industry.
And how is it like in Barcelona then? How's the lockdown and how's business?
Well, business is frankly bad to non-existent in currently. We're still looking forward to an end of summer. Hopefully that there will be the tourism to come back, mostly domestic, people who can drive. The jury's still out about what exactly the phases of loosening the lockdown are going to be in Spain, and so we're approaching this with an open mind, just preparing basically for the time that it does finally open up, and then I hopefully will see that it ramps up quickly. Maybe it's slowly. There's right now all predictions are probably not realistic. Right? We're just playing it by ear.
It's interesting what you're saying as well, because probably domestic travel. What I heard as well is that, for example, Spain was thinking of maybe opening some borders this summer, maybe to neighboring countries like Portugal and France. But all these plans have a lot of impact, right, on whether people want to book right now or whether they'd be able to travel. So for your own business, so can you tell us a bit more about BizFlat? And I think it's a business mostly based in Barcelona, right?
Yes. So we're a local property manager here in Barcelona. The focus is on high-end boutique type apartments. We started in 2004, so 16 years now. And we're taking this period now to make improvements to the apartments. We've been adding sound meters, for instance, to make sure that we don't get issues with neighbors. We're doing maintenance, we're doing upkeep, so making sure that everything's perfect for the day that we open up again.
And these are your property managers, right? So these properties are owned by different people. And what's the thinking now? Are they, when you talk with them and you tell them, okay, now there's no demand right now, but let's improve the place and let's invest a bit in making it better. How do they react?
Oh, on the most part, they've all been very proactive, right? They've almost all been calling me, right, to say, let's take advantage of this time let's do these little tweaks here. Can you when there's furniture open, can you get, like change these chairs? And we're getting all sorts of really good suggestions because we want to keep a dialogue flowing. They know they're in it for the long term because of the licensing regime in Barcelona. So you have there's only a certain number of licenses, and so people who have licenses know that they are valuable, and therefore they invest in making sure that they will still be going in, for the long term.
That's a very interesting factor, right? See, that's why I really love talking with people in each different market, because the having a license has a value. So obviously, if you take your apartment out to get long-term rentals or tenants, you sort of losing on the investment you had made to get through the papers and have this license. So there's something in. I don't know if they would be losing the license, but at least having a license has a meaning, and be able to say, to go back to what you said at the beginning, that vacation rentals business will come back. It's probably making these people think, okay, I'm really there in the long haul because I went through all this, and my business is legal and I'm rightly set up. Maybe that could also be. Is it a difference you see maybe with people who are like build this kind of let's say empires, and with lots of legal and illegal places that we're having? Do you think it's also a different behavior perspective for property managers?
I can totally see that there's a big difference between somebody who is operating in an environment where there's little to no barriers to entry, no licensing requirements or very light requirements, and therefore that their investment in the community is always going to be less than someone who knows that the business is on solid footing, and that all the legalities are covered, and therefore they can invest for the long term, and in attracting the best guests to build the best revenue, and ultimately a very profitable and sustainable business.
So obviously 16 years in a business, you have, how many properties do you have usually on BizFlats, you said?
So so we're keeping it boutique. We have 20 apartments under management.
20 apartments, high end,
yes.
Property owners for the long haul. So you've seen a lot, you also know a lot in the industry. We've met a few times. But what's interesting here is that already you brought us something about what's happening in your own local market and thinking about license. That's something interesting. But you also, I think you think about writing an essay, writing something that hopefully you can share soon about why property managers now should get together. And obviously there's something called, because we're talking here about distribution, basically owning more of your own distribution. So why do you think they should do that now?
Well, as you said, we are at one of those events that changes it's a massive pivot point in a lot of things, but if we keep it to vacation rentals, we're all here, all thinking about the future, because basically our present is empty houses. So one of the things there's this amazing amount of great content out there in form of seminars, in form of mini conferences online. And one thing that I have noticed is that most of these are aimed at individuals, like at property managers as entities, or Airbnb hosts as their own little entity. However, in one of the major contributing factors to the debacle that we've seen in the rentals industry has been that the large players in distribution are entities that are from without the industry. They are outsiders, right? And then they look at the vacation rentals as just another product category to push, as opposed to there being a distribution that is for the industry and from the industry. So, and I haven't seen that. And my thinking is that the best way for the industry to come back from this is also to create its own destiny with distribution. Now this, I've given some thought to this. I think that probably the start would be at the local level. The each location, whatever that is, if it's depending on what the market size. So if you look at, say, the Côte d'Azur, we could talk about Nice and Cannes and Saint-Tropez, which are each centers, but then there's the coast, right? The whole coast, which is also considered an entity or a destination market. So whether it be, whichever of those clusters, or maybe several of them in parallel, there's massive talent and passion, and there's a why, right? They all the managers in the location know why travelers want to go there. Mm-hmm. And they have decades of expertise in running rentals and in attracting clients. Now, at a certain point, about, 8-10 years ago, these new entrants came in, and they made it like, oh, so if we just like put inventory on there, they sell it, and and like we just bring people in. So that seemed an attractive proposition at the day, because otherwise you had to do a lot more hustling. Now the other shoe has dropped, right? And these are not the friends, they are the foes. And
put this.
I'm talking about, Airbnb, Booking, Expedia. These are massive websites.
Yeah, they're naming them. And OTAs means online travel agencies for.
OTAs we can call them. Sure. So in essence, let's go a little bit. Let's go back to basics, but instead of, or in parallel to our own direct marketing efforts, let's at each cluster level look at the initiatives. That could be a booking website, or it could be some sort of listing site. I think that is best decided on the micro level, what the best the best opportunity to go to undertake.
So because what you're saying as well is that basically there's been initiatives before telling people to property managers or vacation rental owners to get their own bookings, or the book direct movement. But what you're saying here is that getting together to create a cluster then gives enough strength or marketing power, negotiating power to actually be able to go and even own part of the distribution, right? That's something bigger, right?
Precisely. That having a distribution channel that is from within the industry and owned by the industry, and therefore in the best interest of the rentals industry. Yes.
What's interesting as well then is, so as you said, right, it depends to each region to define what's the right location, region, area, country, what's the right locale really, and also as you said, it can be better, more beneficial for the industry itself, because I guess also it may mean that the industry can define its own rules. And I'm thinking here maybe about cancellations or topic like travel insurance. To be clear here is, of course, there's been a lot of cases where property managers had to refund or were forced to refund guests in this crisis. So how do you think this effort of getting together could define rules that are more beneficial to the whole industry?
Well, certainly the mere fact that it is run by the industry means that the industry is not going to shoot itself in the foot. And so, you can then have policies which say, okay, so for bookings above a certain level, let's make trip insurance compulsory or build it into the price. I mean, there's any number of ways of doing it, but then we make sure that a player from outside is not going to rewrite the rules on the fly, and they are not going to take hold of your cash flow on the fly. Right? I think that those two things alone would merit putting together some kind of cluster initiative for the rentals industry. If you add to that of course then you can have better margins, you're dealing direct with clients, and that ultimately you have the control, and you have a local or a hyper local kind of branding and marketing that the big players don't have, and they're not interested in, right? They're just interested in having as many shiny boxes on their proverbial website shelves as they can, whereas most of the really good managers, they're interested in what kind of experience people will have at their location, right? And the best way to provide that is to be the provider of record for these things, rather than go through these intermediaries.
So these are interesting topics to be discussed, and again, either through, I guess, associations, property managers getting together, or even talking with destination marketing organizations, the DMOs, that can so help. So I think Jaume, thanks a lot for your time, because I really think it's a very different angle, and more like an angle. Okay, can people get together and think a bit more long term and say, yes, it's a period where a lot of people are reinventing their businesses, but can parts of the industry also be reinvented themselves? That's also very very fascinating topic. So if people want to reach out to you, know more, how can they do that?
Yes, so you can find me on at BizFlats on Twitter, or on Twitter or Instagram, for that matter, or Jaume at BizFlats.com by email.
Okay, so I will put the links below the video so people can then reach out to you and know more. And hopefully, when your essay on this topic is available, also linking to it, making sure people can read it.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I think this is a great conversation that's just getting started. So there's a lot of work to be done, and there's a lot of fantastic discussions that are still to be held. And anyway, thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah, you're welcome. Jaume Barberena,
BizFlats. All the best.
Barcelona.
Okay.
All the best to you. See you soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.